Hey everybody, welcome to DevTips. My name is Travis and this is Jonathan. Jonathan is one of my very best friends. Not even when I moved to the Bay Area, when I was trying to move to San Francisco, I called John and like barely knew each other back there. And I said, hey John, will you go help me find a place to live? And he didn't even know me, but he got in a car and drove me around pretty much all day that day. That was pretty awesome of you. Thank you for doing that. So John is an awesome designer and does codes as well. He is an incredible person all the way around. And there's a little bit of a story. John and I made this project a while ago. It was a really cool project. John did some research on his family tree and wrote some excellent biographies of people in his family. And he designed it, and it was just so beautiful that I said, John, please can I be a part of it? Can I just develop it out for you? And I did it using Jekyll, and when I handed it over to John, he got really he hates Jekyll. John had a bad experience with Jekyll. So what we're doing today is, so since we did the video earlier on PHP Academy, I wanted to talk to John and get this kind of more dynamic view, because I think Jekyll's great. I want to talk to somebody who does not think Jekyll's great, and see if I can't either just understand why, the pros and cons, or if I can't convert him over to the Jekyll loving camp. So John, say hello.
Hey, how's it going?
John also has an excellent beard, if you haven't noticed. John, tell me why you were sad. Why did Jekyll make you sad?
Well, I was expecting to not have to do any kind of code editing or any kind of opening of HTML files and editing things inside of tags in order to update content. I was expecting something a little bit more bare bones type of WordPress environment where I can just dump content in and format it a little bit with some Markdown, or upload an image and it would automatically compress things for me for different types that are displayed on the website.
Yeah, so you wanted a GUI backend kind of idea. You wanted a
I wanted a visual CMS.
Mm-hmm. Well, there we at the end of the episode. John wanted a CMS, and Jekyll is not a CMS. It's not intended to be. It is in the roughest form because it does manage your content for you. Your content is separated from your design templates. And to be honest, when I used Jekyll on your project, it was one of the first times that I used Jekyll. And so I think that I didn't use it as templatey as I could have, right? So in the case of, let's say, where do I put my headline, right? Instead of where I made you write out H2 and then your headline and then close your H2 tag, we could have put a spot in the Headmatter. Remember in the last episode I talked about the Headmatter, the episode that's on PHP Academy, I talked about the Headmatter and how you can kind of use those as, what are they called in WordPress? Form fields or custom fields, fields in WordPress. So if I did that, custom fields for the headline and let's say the names of the person's siblings or something, would that have made you excited, or still would not? Is the logging in and seeing code a problem literally, or is it just that you had to write tags and format it?
I think it's just mostly the tags section of it. Just because it's trying to flow in thoughts and concepts and mix it in with tying it into the part of your brain that's more attuned to developing things and structuring elements together. And it's hard to bridge the gap in between the two.
Now you mentioned Markdown. Did we ever use Markdown on your project?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So this is another cool feature of Jekyll, is that because it's blog aware, meaning it can create a blog, you can create content with Markdown, and it will translate that into markup. So were we to set up where, because it was a really early version of this Jekyll now, I'm a lot better with Jekyll now because I've used it a few times. Were we to create it now, I would say let's set up those custom fields in the top, which are literally like this: name, Jenny Garofalo. It's that easy, right? The next line. What would be another custom field, occupation or something, right? Just
or relation to.
Yeah, right. And then you could type out a few relationships in that, and then I would have a place in the template where I would say, if there is a name in that name field, then throw out this markup. If there is a relationship, throw out this markup and loop through how many names or relationships there are. You can do that in Jekyll, right? So the reason you hate Jekyll is because I sucked at setting it up for you.
So what's the main advantage of using Jekyll over something like WordPress when developing like a site that's the size of this that we're working on, which isn't huge.
No, it's not
but
huge.
it's not 2 or 3 pages that are static that are linked together, but more of a complex thing where we're trying to like navigate people through a certain structure.
Mm-hmm. When you have a site like WordPress, you're dealing with a lot of moving parts. You have the template, you have the database, and then you have the backend where you're actually editing and entering content, right? And these three things are abstracted from each other in WordPress, and that's really good if you're going to be doing a lot of content editing over time. And what Jekyll will help you do is keep things lighter and a little bit faster, right? So for example, Jekyll doesn't have or doesn't use a database. So if you don't have a database, there's a few things come from that. Number one, when somebody visits your website and they like let's say it's WordPress, when somebody visits your website, they say, WordPress, give me this page. WordPress says, okay, let me talk to the database. Okay, here's my content. Let me talk to the template. Okay, here's the page that it should go into. Let's mash them together. And then here you go, server, and the server says, here you go, John. With Jekyll, all of that logic happens before you even upload it onto your server. And so literally, when you visit a Jekyll page, you're visiting pre-rendered HTML. There's no database that it has to talk to. That latency is completely is stepped over, right? And that also would give you a few things. So number one, it gives you speed because you don't have to worry about the latency. Number two, it gives you security because there's no database to hack. It's not based on PHP or anything like that. You can't get inside of it. And other things flow from that, like it'll be cheaper to host. In fact, you can put it on GitHub pages like what we did, which will give you a free hosting, which is awesome. I love free. I love free. Yeah. So I think there's a lot, and there's also this kind of cool thing about it being text files, right? The back end is completely gone. We don't need it because we're a little bit more mature in terms of like our technical capabilities. And there's something kind of just cool about that I like. Now, if I would have set it up right, and you could have written Markdown, and we had like those strategically placed in the front matter, what do I call them again? Custom
fields.
Custom fields. Yeah, I think it probably would have been a different experience for you.
Well, like how malleable and like I get that Jekyll's very modular, and that's good for making things that are not expected out of that engine, right? So like how much can you stretch and pull the Jekyll engine? Is it something that's expandable like Drupal, where you can just like basically make any website that you could ever imagine, or is it something that's really kind of limiting?
It is limited in a big way by the database, right? So you can't do things like people cannot log into anything. There's nothing to log into. They can't have accounts. They can't give you content. They can't contribute anything without touching your files, and those are pre-rendered files. So they would have to if you did have another contributor, they would have to get your pre-rendered files, edit them, render them, and then upload them again. So in that way, it's a little bit of work. Now, some of that complexity is taken out when you factor in services like GitHub, which will allow for collaborating in a really streamlined way. In fact, you can edit and create those content pages on GitHub, and there's actually a service. I am blanking on the name right now, but I'll put a link in the show notes below. But there's a service that it adds that GUI. It adds that back-end kind of feel where you can log in, type the name of the title of the post, and write the content out. And I'm blanking on the name.
That.
Yeah.
I have to find that.
It was actually made by the guys who did whitehouse.gov, which is on Jekyll.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, Barack Obama's campaign last campaign season their platform was on Jekyll. their contribute, and there's a really interesting articles by the guys who made it, and they actually I give a link to a podcast in the video that's on PHP Academy that hopefully you guys have watched already because this is supposed to come out later, and it's really interesting the way that they're using like these third-party services, like things like PayPal or Stripe to collect the payments, and like you can use things like Discuss to have like the interaction on your blog, the commenting system and stuff, but you still have this static output of a blog that you're not managing through a CMS or through WordPress or something like that.
Right. So it seems like it's the candidate for like quickly spinning up a website, getting it online without much hassle, without having to set too many things up, as long as you understand the structure of things and how they render together.
Yeah, like I think it's a really good candidate for a website that you yourself will be able to touch pretty often, or a site that if you are going to hand it off to a client, they're only going to be touching the blog. If they want like feature pages and stuff, it gets a little bit more complicated. Now Jekyll does similar to WordPress in that they have posts, which are like blog posts, and pages, which are more like evergreen kind of entries into the site. But again, because they're like everything's based on text files, it's not as welcoming to somebody who's not like a little bit development savvy as WordPress would be.
Right.
So I think like if I was going to do more work for clients, I'd probably end up using WordPress. I don't think I've ever used Jekyll for a client.
It's just easier to hand off.
The handoff is going to be like, because if you're a small business owner and you have a desire to have a website for your business, you're going to be familiar with the concept of a CMS, and if that's true, you're going to understand WordPress. WordPress is like ubiquitous with CMSs for small businesses and things like that. There's also other options like Squarespace or something that was a little bit even more hand-holdy than WordPress. Yeah.
But it seems pretty good to have a lot of options. Like it would have been probably a pain to build DeRosa in WordPress.
Yeah, I think
the data relation thing would get really confusing.
Yeah, so that's right. Because Jekyll is so malleable, like you can just make up the idea. You can make up ways that things can relate to each other, like on the fly. Whereas WordPress, because it takes a little bit of knowledge of how WordPress works in like the deeper WordPress to add a custom field is a little bit more work, or you like use a plugin to add a custom field, which is it seems like not the right way to do it, and whenever you do use plugins, you have the author of the plugin's opinions about how things should work.
Yeah.
So, but at my office, I built our website, and we've been using Jekyll. Actually, that's where I learned to use Jekyll. Is that their site was based on Jekyll. So when I went into it and started working with it, I'm like, oh, this is how they did it. That is interesting. It's really cool. It's really cool. I'm such like a fanboy, aren't I?
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry. Okay, so is there anything else that kind of bugs you about Jekyll?
Yeah, so on DeRosa in particular, I'm using one image several different times. So I'll have like a picture of my uncle that I'm using for the main header for the article about him, and I'm also using it as a navigation element on the homepage carousel, and I'm also using that as a secondary navigation at the very bottom of the article. And they're 3 different sizes, and it's not too complicated to render those out and spit those out in Photoshop, but having to go in and place those in the specific structure in the directory, and then have to go and text replace each thing.
Yeah, like the naming of them.
Yeah, the naming, and the naming is all different for each one.
Yeah.
I think, well, I guess the naming for each one would solve a little bit of it if they were all consistent. But I think just being so used to a CMS where I can just drop an image in and it's just going to automatically render it as 1,000 pixels wide, 600 pixels wide, 250 pixels wide, and being able to use those as different components as navigation or big header descriptive images is really cool.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything for Jekyll. So Jekyll is extensible, which means that it has like plugin type things and other things, but I don't think there's anything like that for Jekyll. But as Jekyll is a command line tool, if you're in the command line, there are tools that do that. You can, I'll put a link to one of them in the show notes, or in the whatever the doodly below the video. But yeah, you would like type it out and how big you want it to be, and then it would constrain to those proportions or what have you. Now I know that's like, I'm like, yeah, something else does that that's not Photoshop or not WordPress, but you're right. I mean, that is something that it's not going to give you out of the box.
The command line, I think, is just particularly scary for me. Not knowing how to use it, I think, and that's probably a fault of my own. Like, it's hard to place like blame on a program when it's just like, well, I just don't know how to use it.
User error.
Yeah. So,
you suck.
But spinning it up and like having to like locate my directory in the terminal and then like spin it up and then like, oh shit, oh dang, I didn't set the right flag on it, so it's not actually updating anything when I'm pushing new content. Oh, I have to go find that flag in the documentation,
right,
and then apply it to it. Like restart the server.
The watch flag, yeah. So that brings up another point. Like Jekyll, because the command line tool is a little unfriendly for people like you and I who are designers first and then programmers and coders much later. So that was a huge obstacle for me. Like the first night I tried to install it, like I'm downloading command line tools forever and like I had to update Ruby and stuff. So yes, it can be very problematic. There's another bing for you right there, because I got nothing for you. But here's one nice thing though. I used to have to run Jekyll in parallel with Sass to have that flow.
Right.
But the new update of Jekyll, which happened like 2 weeks ago, Jekyll 2, big update. Sass is a part of Jekyll now.
That's cool.
That's
no more
cool.
CodeKit. No more crashing CodeKit.
No more crashing CodeKit.
Excellent.
Yeah. Kitty
cat, you are being so crazy.
So instead of running a command line for Jekyll and a command line for Sass that's actually running inside of your Jekyll installation, there's no more of that. Jekyll will compile your Sass and then compile the markup into a Jekyll structure. That's very exciting.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's the new Jekyll. There's more integration with these kind of like services that you had to run on the outside. So you were using CodeKit and Jekyll at the same time.
Yeah, and I was running into a lot of like errors or something, or I don't know. I don't know if it was the combination of the two, because other projects where I was using Sass compiled fine, but when I was compiling my Jekyll project, it would crash probably like 80% of the time.
Crash CodeKit.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm still searching for the answer. I'm still trying to find the magic workflow that allows me to use like a live reload with my browser to refresh when I save.
Oh, okay. So like kind of like CodeKit.
CodeKit does that built in, and so that was really nice, and I got used to it. And then now I'm not using CodeKit anymore. I'm using more command line-y stuff. I know that there's a way. There's like Live Reload has a command line tool, and there's like a way to use it with Grunt, which is a package, or like with like a workflow manager. And
so like after you spit out your Jekyll, then it sends a trigger to go and refresh the page.
Yeah.
You should just hack it, bro.
How?
Just hack it.
That's your advice?
Yeah.
Hack it. How? Just get Angelina Jolie. She'll zero cool. He'll do it.
My Christmas wish list for Jekyll would be that I get to open my template page, and I can open it in my browser, and I could go in and I could change the text live, and I could hit a series of cool hacker key commands to save the file back down, render it out, and publish it to the internet.
What?
I want to open my website and type things into it and then save it.
Oh, so right in the website interface,
Yeah,
like typing
right into
like
the website.
live
And
into
be able to like grab pictures and take them out and then drop a new picture in.
Oh, right. So this is not Jekyll at all.
No, not even.
So my Jekyll wish list is that it would not be Jekyll anymore.
Ever.
So you're not sold on Jekyll anymore? Yeah,
Not
so
for a different project.
Let's make the call. Are you sold on Jekyll?
Not for this project.
For DeRosa?
Not for DeRosa.
Wow.
For a project where I know that I'm going to be consistently updating only the text content and maybe an image or two inline, I think Jekyll would be great.
Mm-hmm.
For
Yeah.
something that has the components that DeRosa has, and it's not very complicated in itself, but it's just the management of the files, I think, is just a little bit too much for me to endorse it.
There we go. We did not win John's heart. He's not pro Jekyll for this project, and likely will never be with any project. I'm making an assumption here that there's no project that you'll want to use it for in the future.
Probably something where I need quick deployment and free hosting.
Those are good things.
Yeah.
All right.
Like a single page website.
Cool.
Yeah.
Why don't you just make a single page website then at that point?
But why, when you have a cool templating system?
There we go. All right, thanks everybody for watching this episode of DevTips. Thank you so much, John, for being on DevTips.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is awesome. If you enjoyed what you saw today, if you liked John's opinions of Jekyll, if you share them, or if you don't, if you want to argue about it, guys, if you want to fight about it, write them in the comments below. We love to we'd like to start some arguments about this Jekyll now, because I love Jekyll still, and you'll never stop me.
I'll always be burned by it.
All right, thanks guys. Thanks for watching the video. Tune in every Monday at DevTips because we do it Mondays. We do it DevTippy. Bye.